Hey, so today we're joined by Hannah Richardson, who's the Senior Vice President at SIRVA, a global relocation and moving services businesses. Now, we worked with Hannah and her team as part of a customer experience transformation program, and I'm really excited to have you here today to talk about your experiences and the journey that you went on with SIRVA. I'm going to introduce Hannah in a little bit more detail in a moment, but I wondered for the audience whether you could just start off by explaining a little bit about, what is a global relocation and moving business, who your customers are, and what are some of the sorts of services that you provide to them?
Thanks, Ollie. Well, as an integrated global relocation and moving services business, we actually support corporate and government clients to relocate their globally mobile workforce. What this in essence means is we offer full end-to-end B2B2C relocation service solutions. And these can really be anything from lifestyle type services. So if you're going to relocate, say from London through to New York with your family, you're going to need a series of services to help you actually leave your current home country so that you can successfully move into your host country location. So we offer things like finding a new home, transporting your pets, looking for a new role, maybe for your partner on the ground in New York. But we also offer a series of compliance services as well. And this really is to make sure that when you arrive in New York, you are globally compliant to work. So things like visa and immigration. So making sure that you can live there and also work there compliantly.
Wow. So that's really broad, isn't it? And so in terms of like the customers you're looking after, it's not only the direct kind of employees, but their families, their partners, their children, and you're dealing with a lot of really sort of like life-changing kind of activities, like moving from one country to another and visa. So that can be kind of quite critical and important to get right straight away, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a lot of complexity in what we do because there are so many different third-party service partners we require actually to initiate and mobilize on the ground. And I think the other piece as well is that we're actually moving our clients' employees into more than 197 different country locations and jurisdictions.
Wow, vast network.
Yeah.
So at SIRVA, you're responsible for global strategic services. You're also the lead on the global advisory team, the strategic bid and content teams, and you also support the executive leadership on relocation strategy. And previous to that, you looked after the global client book. You had a global operations role, looking after 4 service delivery centers. So that's a massively kind of operational role. And I guess from that perspective, you have a really good line of sight on the complexities of delivering those services out to customers and the challenges that they're facing. So are you seeing any kind of particular trends out there? How's the market changing in that respect?
I think it's fair to say all businesses, particularly global businesses, we're living through really quite exciting times at the moment. I mean, the world continues to rapidly change around us. And I think the most notable trends that we're seeing is there is a growing sense of cost pressure on businesses today in how they deliver whatever their core service or whatever they make as primary. And I think it's fair to say, if we look particularly in the global mobility industry where we serve clients, there's a lot of HR transformation taking place. And I mean broad scale transformation. And this really is altering the way that clients want to receive their services, both from us running a corporate global mobility program, but also how their employees want to receive services from us. So there's a lot of things happening outside in the world today that are completely outside of our control. but they are informing and shaping global mobility strategy in a very different way. That is meaning that global mobility leaders as a whole are looking potentially for new sets of global mobility solutions so that they can successfully run their programs.
Wow. Okay. So the world is changing around the business, and the business needs to reflect and respond to those changes. And I guess that's something that's happening for all of your competitors as well. It's not just something that you're particularly experiencing. This is sort of a market condition.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say our industry as a whole, over the last 10, 20 plus years, has had very little innovation.
Okay.
And particularly very little digital innovation. So what we're starting to see now more on the competitive front is what I would call the digital disruptors coming through. Now, they have a very different offering to what we deliver as a full end-to-end relocation management company. These digital disruptors are coming in more with SaaS-type solutions, really looking to deliver a heightened user experience through the digital software that they're deploying for certain types of corporate programs. But what they don't have is the full end-to-end infrastructure that we have, which covers everything in terms of all of the third-party global supply chain partners across those 197 locations and all of the global financial solutions that we actually deliver to customers on the ground. I mean, just to put that into focus, we actually deliver and disperse more than $4 billion a year on behalf of our client programs.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So Hannah, you led the customer experience transformation team. I'm interested to understand what it was that initiated this program. Were there any particular challenges that SIRVA or your customers were facing that you needed to address?
Yes, I can remember this as clear as day, Ollie. It was back in 2017, and we had one specific global consumer products client, and we still have with them a great partnership today. But they are the client that probes you and kind of almost provokes and pokes at, how are we evolving?
Yeah. Really
challenging us on what we do and why we do it. And they kept asking us the same question over and over again. How are you addressing? How are you delivering heightened customer experiences for our people?
Yeah.
And we kept going back with the same answer, which is, well, we're delivering great customer sat scores for you, thinking that was enough.
Yeah.
And they kept saying, no, you're not answering the question. How are you delivering heightened experiences for our people? And we kept going round and round in this cycle. So I sort of called a bit of an emergency summit at the office, and I brought in the VP and the director of that particular client from an account management perspective. And we literally stood around my desk and we brainstormed, and we were like, how are we getting this question so wrong? And what we realized was we were looking at this very inside out. We were looking at how we were delivering services, if you want, processes, transactions to customers. And we took a step back out and we had that aha moment, which was really where the penny dropped. And we were like, we're seeing this in a very myopic, siloed way. We're looking at this as an operations services-led business, not an experience-led business. And what we very quickly realized was that we needed to educate ourselves on what being truly customer-centric means. And then the next big question then is, well, if you understand it, how do you now deliver it?
Okay. Wow. That's incredible, isn't it? That you can kind of recall back almost to a day and to a meeting,
a moment.
where the kind of the penny dropped.
Yeah.
And that thing about, as you're saying, like, what aren't we getting about this question? And it's true. I think that's the big thing about customer centricity, is this sort of like shift that takes place from kind of always seeing things from the organizational perspective and about the processes and the things that we do, to actually seeing it from the customer's perspective. And that's why within customer experience, there's some things things that are awful for customers. If you think, like, for example, about a returns process, like in a retailer, that's all about the organization. That's why it's so hard for the customer to return anything, all the form filling they have to do. But when you start to think about it from a customer's perspective, suddenly the whole thing changes. And that's really interesting to hear about that sort of realization that it's probably about, the need to begin to build a capability within the organization to understand, how we go about developing these experiences and what they're going to look and feel like and how we're going to deliver them. Feels like sort of realize you needed to sort of adopt a different sort of philosophy within the business, being much more customer centered. Were there any particular opportunities that you thought you might be able to seize? Was there anything kind of obvious that you felt you go after from an experience point of view?
Yeah. So at that point, back in 2017, we had been terrifically successful in winning very large, multinational, decentralized global client programs. And what we realized is that we needed to truly explore and leverage scale. And we needed to work differently to optimize, if you want, more operational synergies or efficiencies. And we were also acutely aware that everything we were doing, as I shared, was inside out. Mm-hmm. And that meant our processes followed that way as well. And a lot of the work that we were doing, particularly with what I would call our frontline customer consultants, was that a lot of their work was very, very manual. So very little digitization, very little automation. So what I would call direct through data processing. Everything that they were doing, literally down to sticky notes around a laptop screen or monitor, right through to checklists, manual checklists. So we realized we really did need to look at our processes and carefully examine how we could digitize and automate more of the delivery to customers, really so that we could free our consultants up from doing back office transactional work so they could really, really focus on the customer.
So you had to deliver change.
Yes.
But this is a massive organization full of very talented people. And I'm sure change isn't, you've done change before. So what was it about this change that made you feel that perhaps you needed to look for a partner? I mean, why not kind of do this stuff yourselves? Why get in help?
It comes back to customer experience. If you're really looking to be a customer client-centric organization, what we did was we were just very honest with ourselves, Ollie, and we looked inside our entire global organization and we said, do we have the skills and capabilities to do this journey on our own? And we very quickly realized we didn't. We didn't have any service designers on payroll, for example. So what we realized was we needed the support and expertise of those who know how to create, shape, and design true customer journeys to help an organization like us deliver the outcomes our clients were asking for.
Yeah. And was there any sort of discussion about who would own this program and how come it came down to you? Because there's often a thing is about experience, like, who within the organization or the organization that hasn't sort of fully matured and is entirely customer centric. There's almost like who owns the experience. I mean, was there discussion about that? How did it end up on your plate?
So I was very privileged to, at that point, be leading the EMEA and APAC client book of business and had a large global operations and account management team that I was leading. And I think it really came down to, I was really passionate about the client.
Okay.
And I felt that we weren't ticking those boxes. And I knew that there was something, if you want, a secret sauce, an ingredient missing from how we were working and partnering with clients.
Yeah.
And I think that was why, I ended up leading the CX transformation.
Yeah.
Because it does really come down to shaping a vision.
Yeah.
Having a mission.
Yeah.
And taking your people with you on that journey.
Yeah.
And because I was actually leading the account management teams at the time, it was a sort of natural progression into that role.
Yeah, because it's so much about leadership and that commitment to kind of drive something through when those around you kind of aren't sure. It's like, this is the direction we're going in, this is why we're going here, and retelling that story over and over again until it kind of takes root in the organization. Everybody's talking about it. So from the context of delivering a better experience for your clients, what was changing in the world that needed to be addressed as part of, the transformation, the future experience you were hoping to deliver?
Yeah. So what we quickly realized was that we were just not keeping abreast of all the big macro trends that were happening out there, particularly as it related at that point to technological and social trends happening. What we were seeing was that customers generally wanted to do as much as possible on their iPhone, literally, having all their content and information in a glance, in some form of digital format. And in essence, what we realized, because we were not delivering our services in that way, we were just not fulfilling the needs of our customers. And we realized was that we were not being as responsive as customers expected. So customers generally, when they receive services, have an expectation maybe that they can have a reach out 24/7. Well, we had quite strict limitations because people deliver our services. We are a people-enabled business, but those people do need to go to sleep. They do need a holiday. They do take time off. And of course, this was curtailing to some degree the experience for our customers, say outside of core hours, 8 through 6 p.m. So that was another big initiative for us. That was another aha moment where actually we were not fulfilling the brief, where actually maybe an employee that requires our services might want to do a lot of this when they've finished their day job.
Yeah.
And they want to do it at home and sit on the sofa and maybe look at their iPhone and go, okay, that's happening tomorrow. I need to get ready for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? That when I hear you kind of play that back to me, it just reinforces the sort of the change that needs to take place, because you're going from the business doing things in their terms during their office day to actually having to be able to do things, at the time of day that the customer wants and in the way that the customer wants it. I mean, that massively transforms things, isn't it? So not only are you, by focusing on this customer experience transformation, you're also kind of embarking on a digital transformation. Yes. So it's like a double amount of transformation that's taking place. It's also really interesting. What we hear often when you're beginning to sort of work on an experience project is the way that customers begin to sort of compare your experience to another company's experience, and often that's a company that's in a completely different industry and sector. So you were saying about they expect to be able to do this sort of instantaneously as they might be able to do on Amazon, for example. And you're there kind of going, we're not Amazon, we're a global relocation business. We can't be expected to do the same things. But the customer doesn't see it that way. And their expectations are being shaped by a whole portfolio of other businesses around them. And they're demanding the same experiences. So customers' expectations are massively shifting.
And that's where we realized when we looked at how we were delivering services, we realized that there was an enormous experience gap between where we were delivering services and where we needed to be delivering services to meet that customer expectation. And you're so right, Ollie. I mean, everybody draws from experiences of how they receive products or services from other organizations and companies. If then you're not doing that, it's very quickly seen and exposed almost. Yes. And so that was where we were leaning in and actually going, we need to really explore what an experience journey needs to look like for our customers.
And almost from a customer's point of view, also the outrage the customer feels, like, how dare I not be able to do this thing, under my duvet and and on my phone last thing at night. And It's probably like very reasonable reasons why that's probably hard, because your team have to sleep and that kind of thing. So it's very, very hard. So thinking about the project now and as it played out, what was the process like? What did the team kind of learn through the process?
So I think it's fair to say working with Engine on our CX program and delivery of CX transformation was absolutely one of the top highlights of my career to date.
Great to hear.
And that was for a number of reasons. I mean, I was in real creative learn mode.
Yeah.
And that's always great to have education and continued learning in your own professional journey. But it also, I realized, brought about significant influence and change on how our company needed to operate. And it was exhilarating and it was fun, but it was also quite scary at times, in a good way.
Yeah.
But you're navigating organizational change and direction in how you have done things historically. And I think that came with quite a lot of understanding that this was significant, this was material in kind of evolving who we were going to become as a new organization.
Yeah.
And I think my other big learning, Ollie, was that you have to trust the service design process.
Okay.
And you need to use the tools. There's some really, really good CX tools that comes as part of that sort of, broader toolkit. And it's actually learning how to use the tools and also to keep going back to look at the tools.
Yeah.
And I think if you can have a favorite tool, my favorite tool was absolutely the concept of experience.
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason for that was when you actually look at the concept of experience, it brings to life how you're delivering services today and how your customers are feeling. Okay. But it also visibly signposts where your experience needs to be and how you need to shift customer sentiment from and to. And what I found, not just, on a professional level, looking at that and sort of questioning it in my mind, when you actually presented that to clients, they also got really excited about it, because what that was doing was mapping out the customer journey, how it feels today, how it needs to feel tomorrow, and actually showing where that experience gap is. Yeah. And that then prompts and promotes a lot of different type of conversation with your client on how then we were going to realize that.
Brilliant. So just for the audience, so the concept of experience, it's a great tool, isn't it? And just to paint a picture of that. So broadly speaking, it's a high level sort of strategic view of the journey, and it contrasts let's say it's broken down across typical stages of the customer's journey, and it contrasts what's happening today to what will happen tomorrow. And as you said, it sort of sets out what the shifts are going to be. So, for example, if you were talking about a sign-up process for something, you might kind of go, it's going to move from, a tedious experience to a quick and enjoyable experience. Or if it's about, talking about kind of service communications that might take place between, customers and the business, it might say they're going to move from like very dull functional dialogues to relationship building conversations. And it's in that at a very high level, people can kind of begin to get excited about the change. It's great to hear that you were then taking that out to your clients, because was this sort of beginning to answer that original question that great challenging client had about, so what are you going to do? What's the experience going to be like? Did that help to begin to paint a picture to clients of those things?
What it gave the clients was assurance. It gave the clients assurance that we'd listened.
Okay.
And that we were now actioning. And that we were working, if you want, with experts in this field to really challenge how we deliver services by taking the outside in and then the inside out in terms of actually really, really understanding how you pivot to becoming or shifting towards becoming a truly customer-centric organization. So we took our clients on this journey as well. Yeah. And the clients were terrifically excited by the tools that they were seeing, but also then putting those tools and all of the design work we did together actually into transformation action.
Yes. So just to be clear, so actually as you were transforming, you sort of you took the clients along the journey with you. You didn't just kind of go away and come out and go da-da. You had to bring them along from day one to get them bought into the process, or
not necessarily bought in. I think it was more a very visible flag to show them that these conversations were just becoming more and more common.
Yeah.
So more and more of our clients were saying, what are you doing in the experience space? How are you going to deliver high-end experiences for our people? So what started out as a singular conversation back in 2017, fast forward 2 years, most of our client base were asking what we were doing in the experience space. So to have these tools at our fingertips to say, we understand what delivering experiences means. This is how we are customer-centric, and look at these great tools that we're using to help chart and shift our organization to becoming that.
So for some organizations, like going through this process and involving their clients in it, it can be a form of almost, for want of a better expression, that's sort of account development or retention. So if you have your clients kind of going, well, where are we going, or something's coming up for, recontracting or whatever, involving them in a conversation about that is surely a great way to, help them realize actually, how much, their organization is actually facing into what's changing the market and how things are going to be different.
Yeah, I think because change is so accelerated today, I think the one key piece that our clients and ourselves are always looking at is, how do you remain relevant in what you are delivering and doing day to day? Yeah. And if you are working with your clients in a true strategic capacity of really understanding their needs, their requirements, their preferences, and you have the toolkit to help you with that, and then you actually also start to create a momentum of service design thinking across your organization, you get incredible momentum building across your account management teams, across your sales teams, which then really does drive and deliver a very different type of conversation with your clients, because they then have the assurance that you understand them. And a lot of it is also really, I suppose, if we're looking at this very holistically, understanding what's happening out there in the macro environment. What are the big meta trends shaping and influencing organizational strategy, which then comes down to, in our field, global mobility strategy? And what is it that our client leaders are needing in terms of outcomes to set their programs up for success?
So were there any unexpected positives or challenges that you encountered during the project?
Yes. And I think we'd underestimated, or maybe not realized, how much fun it was going to be.
Okay.
Going through any type of project, particularly a CX transformation project, you maybe wrongly have an assumption of how it might feel, but actually that really surprised us, and on how much fun was actually generated from a group of really talented, creative, bright people coming together and actually creating something really exciting for our company.
Yeah.
It was hard work. Change is never easy. But actually, there was a real live spirit in the room when we were all working together. We were all very focused on what were the outcomes we needed for the project. How are we going to shift our organization forward? How are we going to design and shape something that felt very different than how we did things today?
Yeah. Why was fun important? I mean, why not just do it, in a business-like kind of way? Was fun an important kind of quality to build into the project for it to develop its momentum? Was it different to the way that things have normally been, or different to like normal kind of day-to-day working as within a project?
I think when you are driving a project of change, you can do it in a clearly a very professional business format structure.
Yeah.
But this was different. It felt different, and we could tell that we were also going on an experience journey by shaping and shifting and evolving our organization.
Yeah.
We felt very supported and guided. Yes. And I think that allowed the bandwidth for, fun and creativity to come to the fore in a way that maybe sometimes other projects don't or can't.
And And what part did like leadership and vision kind of play within that project? I mean, there's obviously your leadership of the program, but that's sitting within a larger organization. How important was that?
That was really important. I think that's a critical call out.
Yeah.
In order to keep momentum and the success moving forward, you need to have a very senior exec sponsor and you need CEO buy-in. Okay. And we had that. Our CEO absolutely believed in the CX vision we had created. They would talk openly about it in client meetings or in conference events. So you do need that leadership buy-in. I'd probably say the other call out is you need to take your people with you. And that's everybody across your organization.
Yeah.
You need to keep communicating internally. Why are we going on this journey? What does the journey mean?
Yeah.
And getting everybody really to understand, at least, if not buy into that new CX vision that you're creating. For that, for your entire organization, for your client base, for any stakeholder that you're working with.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's something that we've seen time and time again, the importance of leadership at a project level, at an organizational level, and particularly when you're talking about customer centricity, strategic direction and commitment are vital, and that comes from the top. Making those decisions and standing by those decisions, and ensuring that everybody sort of understands what we're doing and why we're doing it is massively important. And the way that then begins to infuse and shape the culture within the organization, the way we do things around here, and the way that then begins to kind of filter through into the management processes and the decisions that are being taken. So can you tell me more then about the sort of the impact of the project? Perhaps, was there any sort of immediate impact or impact, when the sort of the transformation had been completed, if indeed it's completed?
I think it's fair to say a CX transformation it continues to evolve.
Okay.
And that's because the meta trends, the macro trends out there continue to change and shape what we do. Yeah. The world we live in today is very different than when we were back in 2017. Yeah. The post-pandemic world is very different than the pre-pandemic world. Yeah. So, I think what we've learned is that through using the CX toolkit, we can continue to evolve how we deliver services. So you start to acquire a skill set and capability within your organization that just wasn't there before you start this work. But I think also when you're mobilizing a CX program, it takes a team of people.
Okay.
And everybody needs to sort of buy into that CX vision, understand why we're moving the transformation forward. And it's really looking into your broader organization and finding those people who are passionate about customer service or client centricity to support you. And this really, really is critical, as the journey requires a variety of different leaders and supporters to enable it and bring it to life.
Was it hard to find those people? I mean, do you have to literally convince everybody to be customer-centered, or were there people who kind of go, yeah, I'm up for that?
I think it's fair to say we had a lot of volunteers. What we do in terms of how we deliver services, people are naturally, human-centric, if you want.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have a shortage of volunteers by no means coming through. But I think if you have leaders that are very passionate about what delivering a CX transformation means, you're naturally drawn to those people. It wasn't difficult to find them across our global organization. And then when you start to tell them about the work and the program of change, they want to become, they want to get on board and become involved.
Brilliant. But being involved, I mean, that was critical, right? But then also those people must have faced challenges. I mean, were there any sort of particular challenges that you had to overcome, in continuing to drive this customer centricity? I mean, you talked before about the sort of, part and parcel of that was massive digital transformation. That's not cheap. What were examples of challenges that you felt you had to kind of overcome, or maybe are still, working on to this day?
Yeah. So as it relates to those within our own organization coming on board, I think probably time, because people still have a day job.
Yeah.
So it's being mindful of that and respectful of people's time. But it's amazing how people will step up and get involved. I think in terms of delivering a CX transformation generally, we had sort of bucketed the change and the shift into digital and non-digital enablers. And clearly where you need a lot of digital enablement to bring certain aspects of your experience to life, that's not an immaterial investment. So really sort of looking through the tech lens, it really is working with your tech leaders, your CTO, your CIO, to ensure that, as you're going into your budgeting cycles, that obviously you've got the right levels of CapEx and OpEx going through to make sure that those elements of the program are being prioritized as they need to be prioritized. Finding tech skills today, I think most organizations are quite challenged with that, and maybe new and different types of, skills that need to sit in your technology function as a whole. So I'd probably say that they were some of the challenges we face, but I would probably say that they're not general challenges that most organizations are not being faced with today.
Okay.
And then I think also looking at then how you actually mobilize your program. I think for those organizations who are working without maybe a service design consultancy, it's hard to mobilize, particularly if you don't have those skills and capabilities within your organization. I think the basic questions of how do we do this on our own? Do we have the skills and capabilities in-house to do this? And it's actually getting it started. And that's where we found we needed that expertise and guidance and support. We knew we needed to change. We knew we needed to shift. The question was, how do you do it? And that's, again, then beyond, if you want, the actual design of the journey itself, you then need that sort of guidance and support to actually kickstart, if you want, the go live of the program.
So I'm interested to then explore kind of the benefits kind of in doing all of this. So you spoke before about the benefits of sort of the conversations you were able to have with your clients about kind of taking them on the journey. You've spoken about the sort of the benefits of developing those skills and that experience and those kind of capabilities. What other benefits have you found through going through this process?
I would probably say the number one benefit is you become a client-centric organization in a way you just were not prior to going on a service design experience. By curating and designing journeys, both for your clients and their employees, in our case, our customers, you have a much better understanding of how you need to respond in a rapidly changing world, but also you're continually designing and thinking about how you need to deliver services that meet your clients' needs and requirements and preferences. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they continually change, and they will be different maybe from organization to organization too. And if you can create client assurance in that way through true strategic partnerships, where you're in listen mode and you're able to truly, if you want, consult and partner with your clients to establish what their needs are. And I think the surprising thing here is you can approach that conversation in many different ways. Yeah. Quite often, if you go to a client and say, tell me what's not working, or tell me how we need to improve, they can't.
Right. Okay.
They can't always articulate exactly what's needed. But by working through a service design process, by maybe creating problem statements together, then looking at the outcomes that they would love to achieve on their program. Then through service design, you can actually start to create solutions that deliver outcomes.
Brilliant. All being aligned up the right way. So Hannah, our conversation is drawing to a close, but before we do, I'd like to kind of move the conversation on to reflecting on your experience and to some advice that you might be able to offer to other people and their organizations who are about to embark on this journey. And the first thing is to kind of understand what the blockers might be to kind of beginning to get on the road to being a more customer-centric organization.
I think it's as simple as knowing where to start.
Okay.
If you maybe don't understand service design or have access to a consultancy in service design, or you don't really truly understand what being customer-centric means, the idea of launching a CX transformation or delivering a CX program is going to be really overwhelming. And I can clearly see now driving organizational CX transformation change does require a really robust approach and framework to getting that program fully launched. And you need to also have that holistic oversight of what is happening out there in the world, not necessarily in your own industry, but what is happening across all industries that's continuing to shape and influence and change client and customer buyer behavior. And so you need to have the holistic view and then the understanding of the how do we do this in order to get things launched. I think in absence of any of that, it's a much more difficult task. And CX transformations not to be underestimated.
Okay. And if there were one bit of advice that you would give an organization about to kind of set out on this, and you mentioned before, like knowing where to start, but aside from that, what do you think that would be the most important thing that they would need to kind of seek or get right first?
I think it all starts with finding that client who kind of probes your consciousness almost to say, we need to look at how we're working together. We need to look at how you're delivering services. And I think you need to have that very open, honest conversation to say, are we getting this right?
Yeah.
And if you have that kind of, inner dialogue with yourself to say, actually, it's probably not quite right, you need to really understand how then you move what you're doing or making forward in a different way.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting you saying that. So it's kind of like, recognizing what the trigger is. So it's the challenging client, etc. But for some organizations, they don't want to wait until someone kind of pins them down on something, but recognizing where the trigger is, and then, as you've said, about having an organization or people within the organization who are self-reflective enough to realize that actually something can change and something needs to be done.
Yeah, and I think simply put, Ollie, you can't create strategy in a vacuum or in absence of clients' input.
Yeah. Cool. So wrapping up, so fundamentally, what do you think the biggest benefits have been about being a customer-centric organization like SIRVA?
So I think fundamentally, if you're truly, truly passionate about your customers and your people, you'll want to create, firstly, for your people, a culture that feels empowered, feels fun, feels exciting, feels reassured. And I think, importantly, relevant. And I think for your customers, your clients, you're looking to continually foster true, meaningful, strategic partnerships that deliver sets of services and experiences that are meaningful and purposeful in the moment. And ultimately, I think our goal is always to grow with our clients. and actually foster that strategic partnership in a way that has success outcomes for both. And I think, just on another note, I think when you look at the number of businesses today that are struggling to remain viable or relevant.
Okay.
You look at the S&P 500. I think now the average lifespan of a client of an organization is less than 20 years and falling.
Really?
So change is going to be the only ever constant we face together. And so partnership is even more important, and being client or customer centric is even more important than ever before. Yeah.
So it's the only strategy available in a world of unending change, to just focus on your customers and their needs and develop the capabilities within your organization to listen to those changing needs and to respond is probably the only option that organizations have.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Hannah, thank you so much for coming in today. It's been wonderful. You've been so honest and very, very generous with your insights on your experience. I'm sure that's going to be incredibly valuable to all of the listeners out there. And from me and everybody at Engine, just to wish you and the team, all the best. This transformation, as you're saying, it isn't over. It's a way of being now, and I'm sure you're going to nail it. And for everybody else, thank you for listening today. If you want to learn more about becoming a customer-centered organization, of course, we've got a whole podcast series that focuses in on that. So have a listen to that. And if you're really itching to find out whether or not you are part of a customer-centered organization, we actually have a wonderful self-assessment tool that you can use. So if you just kind of follow the links in the description to this podcast, you can go through and take that test. Anyway, until next time, Hannah, thank you very much.
Thanks,
see you guys around. All the best. Thank you.